I think, again, it's globally, they want part of them in this picture, in this global picture. Therefore, Christians are always, you can't believe how much Jesus stuff that has been attacked over and over and over again against Jesus or any type of Christianity. You could blaspheme Jesus as much as you want on Facebook. But if you go against somebody that's wearing one of those Islamic hats and thinking that they're going to blow themselves up, well, that's hate speech. But if there's anything over here and in name of Christian, shares a Bible verse or just, says this, that may appear to go against homosexuality, well, that's hate speech. That's, this and that. That's not allowed.
It's pretty clear that Facebook has a political agenda. And it's also clear that if you're not in line with that, you're less likely to be heard.
Whether you're one that believes in the God of the Bible or not, this video will be very important to you. Because if you don't believe in the God of the Bible, and at the same time you don't literally worship Satan, the other side of that deific Bible, then you're not going to like what this New World Order is doing to us, where a lot of you already dislike it so much that you're up in arms. Let me explain to you that this country used to be very biblically grounded. We had a seriousness about the Father in heaven because we understood the truth about him. The first thing they did was to take us away from that truth, and they destroyed our seriousness about that Bible and that God. Where that God said, okay, well, you don't want my laws. The Constitution took away the Father's laws in this land. Then you're on your own. I gave you free will. If you don't want me to interfere with your man-made law system, you're on your own. I'm out of here. So now we have so-called secularists that seem to think there's somehow a neutral ground. We came from swamp slime and monkeys, because that was also the next lie that had to be put in place, that they might achieve all that they're doing today. Science shows this earth is no more, at the very most, no more than 50,000 years old. Absolutely impossible for Darwinian evolution to have happened. And there's only two choices how we got here, folks. So whether you're a believer in the God of the Bible or not, and whether you've researched that or not, that is the first step that needs to be accomplished in anyone who's trying to ascertain what's really going on in this world. We've been tricked first away from the God that protected us, so that now they can do what they want to us, dumb us down, lie to us, vaccinate us, and I can go on with one heck of a list, can't I? Well, now you're seeing there's a second wave coming. There's a dust storm covering America this week. They're talking about locusts that are all over South America, the southern hemisphere. Is this not enough to wake you up? If not, then there's a lot more coming. I'm prepared. I know where I'm going. And there are a lot with me now that are waking up, realizing we've got to get back to that Bible and get back to our knees in respect of the God that gave us that Bible. That Bible is a covenant. It's a contract. It's a much stronger contract than any constitution, because it has enforcement power behind it for those who stand with it. Something that the constitutions and the Magna Cartas don't have. This video is about censorship. Discernment, continued from the last video. Well, if we don't get back into Yahweh's better graces, and that's his name, the God of the Bible, if we don't get back in his better graces, we don't get his discernment. We don't get the deeper insight as to what's really taking place, which helps them to dumb you down even further. What you just saw was a clip from a Facebook moderator who's essentially fed up with the way that Christians are being chopped out of the conversations worldwide by a system that's now allowed to moderate what we say to each other. Now, a lot of you might say, well, there goes the free speech. I don't want free speech. I want honest, true, loving speech. And only the God of the Bible and his instructions for how to run a government teach us how to do that. It's something that they took away from us when the Puritans had it in place a couple hundred years ago. A lot of us want that back, and we can get it back. We've got to wake up first, not just to the problem, but to the real solution. But first, We have to actually see how bad it's getting with the censorship so that we realize we're about to lose everything, not just the truth of the Bible and this God, but everything we hold dear to us, because everything centers around our ability to communicate with one another and information. So, what I'm going to play for you now is a Project Veritas video, but you will see there's a lot of politics in it. And the reason for the politics in here is to continually keep us focused on a solution of politics, as though it is the answer. They don't want you knowing what serious preachers like myself are talking about, which is a return to the biblical government that most of our Puritan colonies had in place. This is why you'll hear that YouTube and some of the others are allowing some of the bigger voices to keep you busy and distracted with the problem, not the solution. So yeah, they'll let all the talk about the vaccinations out there. They won't talk about the 5G. They don't want you to know that part yet. But they'll let all the vaccination stuff out there and the problems with it so that you're wrapped up in it in fear. They don't want you hearing about a simple, loving, peaceful solution. They want you to keep thinking that there's a political solution. As I wrote in my book 10 years ago, Bullies for Satan, they want you to keep focused on the red versus blue puppet show, or any other color that you want to enter into the mix in independent party system, liberalism, common law, all this. They want you focused on that arena, that theater. A puppet show where everybody's fighting over a smorgasbord of man-made law systems. So long as you're all fighting over the man-made law systems, they don't care. They simply don't want you going back to the truth that the God of the Bible has a better government solution and has enforcement power to stop this. Keep that in mind as you listen to the clips that you're going to hear throughout the rest of this. So give this a watch and we'll talk a little more after it's over.
It's simple. As you say, be brave. I am more brave than I am scared of any trouble that anybody could give me for breaking some stupid NDA. I think the truth is more powerful than any NDA. To stick up for the voice of the people.
It's
Facebook.
Do shadow bans.
Yeah.
Facebook's notorious for it, and they say they don't, but it's clear that people's content don't comes up because it's been defiltered off the queue.
It's a very progressive company who's very anti-MAGA.
If you see a conservative post, you just get rid of it. Right.
I don't give a I'll delete it.
You gotta get the Cheeto out of office.
Zach McElroy came to Project Veritas because of what he saw at his job at Facebook in Tampa, Florida. He saw and filmed evidence of structural and cultural bias inside Facebook discriminating against Republicans and conservatives. McElroy's story raises serious doubts about the under-oath testimony of Facebook's CEO Mark Zuckerberg to Congress, where he claimed Facebook has no political bias.
What percentage of the flagged posts in the civic harassment queue, as it's called, were Republican conservative?
I saw a stark contrast between Republicans versus Democrats in that queue. I saw upwards of 75 to 80% of the posts in that queue were from Republican pages, politicians, journalists, and pages that supported the president or supported conservatives.
What does that tell you about Facebook/Cognizant's algorithm here?
Well, certainly the algorithm is not human, but it had to be made by a human. So for 75 to 80% of the posts to be targeting Republicans and conservatives, you can say it was a bot, but somebody had to design that algorithm. So really, somebody at Facebook.
Some people on Capitol Hill have expressed interest in this ratio that you speak of. Are you willing to potentially testify under oath that 3/4 of the posts that you saw flagged were in one political direction?
To the best of my knowledge and ability, yes. To me, censorship online is one of the biggest issues facing us in the lead up to the 2020 election. Well, insofar as I was not somebody who was working behind the scenes on policy, but rather as someone who was enforcing policy, I saw everybody around me and I saw myself, and I did a little bit of comparing, and I thought, there really are not very many conservatives here. And because there are not very many conservatives, I really don't think there are very many people sticking up for the voice of conservatives at a company that handles the flow of conversations, basically a large portion of the discourse online. And we are essentially in charge of what gets said and what gets stifled.
You mentioned the election, and can talk a little bit more about your concerns as it pertains to Facebook meddling or being involved in the 2020 election.
Well, we know publicly, and as someone even before I started working there, we've seen plenty of statements from Mark Zuckerberg publicly about how they don't want to meddle in the election. They want to give everybody a free, a platform for everybody to speak freely. But we know that privately they have very different opinions, and we've seen that with the previous Facebook story that you guys published. And I had no doubt that what he said publicly is not what he means to do privately.
So let's go to the Trump cartoon, this one here. Is this something that you saw at your tenure?
Yes, I actually saw this image a lot.
Tell me about this.
Well, this is an image, I believe it's in an art museum in Portland. They put this up as a bit of a political statement, and Facebook actually reacted to this, at least internally. They gave us a memo saying that this would not violate for violence and incitement or anything else, really. And so we were told to leave this image up, as long as it didn't say, oh, I'm going to actually kill Donald Trump or something like that.
So you just told us about this one where they allowed it to stay up. They think that this cartoon with Elmer Fudd has high severity violence and incitement, but this does not. How do you reconcile that as a Facebook cognizant insider?
Well, frankly, I don't. There's no difference between the two. There's no logical reason why the determined reaction to those two posts would be different. They should be the same.
This is was this something that you took a screenshot of?
Yes, it is.
Talk to me about what I'm looking at here with Don Lemon.
This was a memo given to moderators in, looks like, November 2018. They made an exception for content involving a thing that Don Lemon said on CNN around the time.
It says CNN host Don Lemon recently said white men are, quote, the biggest terror threat in this country, unquote. This is implying that white men are terrorists and so would typically violate this dehumanizing speech, they call it. As this is a newsworthy event, Facebook's content policy team is allowing a narrow exception for this content on the platform. Why would they do that?
Well, it's hard to say. They would like to say that this was newsworthy, but frankly, if they say that this is newsworthy, that means that they can say anything they want is newsworthy. Well, certainly there is obviously an intention on Facebook's part to have the back of people like CNN and hosts like Don Lemon.
Also flagged in the queue were comments from unknown conservatives about Project Veritas videos.
And in this case, it was a post regarding the Project Veritas ABC Epstein Amy Robach hot mic tape. Why did the algorithm flag this at all?
I don't know why the algorithm would have flagged this. I don't know why any bot would have chosen to select Project Veritas's page on Instagram or Facebook to monitor, basically.
Mm-hmm. And in this post, it appears to be a post featuring a comment made by Infidel, who is a verified Instagram political commentator, and The Typical Liberal, who's another Instagram verified commentator. And in this Infidel post, it reads, thankfully, there are honorable journalists like Project Veritas willing to hunt for and tell the truth. No matter what, the truth will prevail. Oh, and Epstein didn't kill himself.
Yes.
Why is this being flagged?
Well, frankly, there's no reason that this should be flagged.
Are these the only posts you saw flagged with Project Veritas, the Amy Robach tapes?
I saw that one. I think I may have seen one other one that I believe I recorded. If I didn't, then I must be mistaken. But yes, I've seen Project Veritas in that queue.
Will they flag us more after this expose comes out?
I predict they will. Let me run something by you. You know that civic harassment queue that we've been in lately?
Yeah.
Is it just me, or is it like all Republicans in there?
It's all Republicans. But a lot of it comes off of Trump's page specifically.
Yeah, because I see like a Bernie post, and then I'll see like 5 Trump posts in a row.
Yeah, it looks straight Republican related. Like, I love our president. Where are we getting this?
Steve Grimmett is a content moderator for Facebook in Austin, Texas.
It's a very progressive company who's very anti-MAGA.
I know that Facebook does have a Trump rule where they still allow him on the platform, even though he says things that if anyone else said it.
And that's the fortunate thing is, even if he does say something, if it gets repeated, we can at least get the average Joe. But it goes back to our discussion earlier. It's hard when you've got the top person in the country. That's his MO. But you know, Facebook's done a lot better job of at least policing the mimickers and the mockingbirds that come after Trump.
I assume your coworkers were deleting a lot of Trump.
Nobody likes Trump on the national side.
You don't leave any go, do you? Like, if you see a conservative post, you just get rid of it. Right.
I don't give no I'll delete it.
Good.
And they'll get salty. It's mostly
like, even if it's not, even if it's in policy, like, you're deleting that, right?
Yeah, I don't give no It's like 1 week left. What are they gonna do? Like, send me to OIP? I don't give a
You told me that you just whack all the conservative posts and just gone, right?
No, honestly, like every time, like half the time when I delete people for like pro-Trump, I mean, you should be on a watch list, dude.
Yeah. Seriously.
Trump supporters like to throw around like Trump derangement syndrome as like, you know, liberals being crazy. I like to think of it as actually you're the one that has Trump derangement syndrome. You're losing your goddamn mind as soon as, because they're just like, oh, Trump 2020, and it's like, that sounds a little more deranged to me when you end every argument than that.
Like, even like hashtag MAGA or hashtag MAGA 2020.
It's political, it stays up.
Yeah, but not for you.
No. Oh no.
Deleted.
Yeah.
So it's like delete any like positive Trump supporter stuff. But if it makes him look bad,
You have to take it down, but I leave it up.
you leave it up.
So if you see something that's not supposed to be up, it's probably me.
So you've deleted just hashtag MAGA?
Yeah.
Like the post gone?
It's common sense.
Who else is like you? Like in the office? Who else that proactively deletes?
Well, I hang out with a lot of people because they'll come up to me and they'll be like, "Proofs me," and then when I do, it's like, you set yourself up. But there's Marcella. I hang out a lot with her. There's like other Asian guys that I hang out there. Kevin, who's like the midget that I harass about his height. And then there's like Trug, Gabe, Cassie, Jen. Yeah, that's it. Oh, Dante, Skylar, Shania.
Those are all like the resistors.
The people that I hang out with.
Yeah. And they all do the same thing as you, content moderator. How many of you are they take your own stance and say we're just deleting whatever all the Trump posts?
There's only probably like 16 of us.
And you guys, like, you just delete everyone? Yeah. So
16 in the morning.
I don't believe in pushing
the left agenda.
Yeah, and that's what Facebook does.
How?
By allowing a lot of stuff that are very far left to be still on the platform. Like, for example, like racial stuff.
Okay.
You could call me white trash based on me being white, but I can't. But if you say Asian trash, black trash, brown trash, we got to delete stuff like that.
Right.
So they're very, they'll allow certain things, but not for others where you would think something could be. And so that's just, one example. And they're very, politically, it's like you could say anything you want except kill for someone on the right.
Okay.
But if it's someone on the left, then it's about their race. That's up in governmental things. You have to take that down for hate speech.
Yeah, and then she has a MAGA hat on or something.
I'll delete all Republicans, yeah.
You'll delete all of them. Yeah. I would so do that though.
If someone wears a MAGA hat, I'm gonna delete it for terrorism.
Yeah. You just have to go hard that day. It's just get into work early. Like I'm on a mission. Make up for the last year.
I think probably.
Oh really?
But if they attack Bernie or something, maybe I'll take that. Yeah, I can take that.
What type of
attack?
attack?
Say Bernie is this and this, and he doesn't believe in that, and he's just this or whatever. I'll just take it down.
It's think about the amount of impact that you could have if you remove those types of posts.
Yeah. I mean, once
the hateful.
Yeah. That's true. I'd rather remove Trump posts than Bernie posts, though, because I feel like people just say, "Oh, I don't like Bernie," or "Bernie's a communist." I don't really think that would impact anything. But if a Trump post was to come up and it was promoting Trump, and I could take that down, then I feel like that would be good.
The actions of the content moderators may not be conclusive evidence of structural bias at Facebook, but it certainly speaks to the anti-conservative culture that McElroy says is pervasive.
Well, it's very simple. You've got a formula. You've got a workplace full of mostly liberal-leaning Democrats, leftists, essentially, and they are being put in charge of moderating the entire public discourse. Facebook and Instagram are very large platforms, one of the biggest. And our voices are in the hands of people who are almost entirely left-leaning and not right-leaning or otherwise unbiased. And in speaking with a lot of them, I found that they are not at all shy to exercise their political will in deleting or leaving up content, whether or not they're allowed to, or whether or not they'll get penalized for it, especially when they've got nothing to lose, that is to say, they're getting laid off.
That's hard. Yeah. What if I know? I come up with some good ass excuses sometimes where they let me slide with the book.
No one cares.
No one cares. They're just deleting everything they want. I know a lot of people, always going back to politics, but hey, fighting the good fight. I know a lot of people were taking down, Trump posts.
Stuff. Oh yeah, I knew that too. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to hold you accountable for taking it down. We have 30 minutes left. I'm like, what do you want me to do?
It's for the better.
Yeah, hell yeah. You gotta get the Cheeto out of office.
I'm thinking, delete every Donald Trump post I see on the timeline.
Oh, okay, I thought I was the only one.
Why not? You think?
Why not? See, this is a man thing.
I thought I was the only one doing it, okay?
You're doing it?
I thought I was the only one doing it.
But I'll be here.
I just feel
Spite.
revenge for all the
I mean, what you think? They gonna audit you? Who cares?
Oh, who knows? I don't know, but I just feel like I'm doing something.
Do you think if it was a pro-Trump whistleblower that they would protect him to the same level? No, right?
I think they're very biased with who they protect.
At a certain extent, like the bias. You've seen the Twitter shadow banning. So I wonder if you've seen anything at Facebook.
Shadow bans.
Yeah.
Facebook's notorious for it, and they say they don't, but it's clear that people's content don't comes up because it's been defiltered off the queue.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's crazy.
They're doing something, man. They're just trying to pretend like they're not.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely being done. I don't know if there's any plans to make it more, like, to make it a true shadow ban. Like, you post these things, nobody can see your, like, you're not banned, but nobody can see it.
So a lot of things that we have to look out for are the dog whistles, are the I guess the content coming from places that is a haven for white nationalism.
So there's an insider watching this program and looking at what you did and working inside of whatever company they're working. Maybe it's Google, maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's, CNN. What is your message to those people who have not yet made the decision to do what you've done?
I would say you can do it too. I would say it's not as impossible as you think.
McElroy signed non-disclosure agreements when he started and ended his employment at Facebook Cognizant.
Are you afraid?
I think the truth is more powerful than any NDA.
Facebook needs to be transparent about their political bias, both institutional and cultural. If you're on the inside of a big tech company and see issues that need to be exposed, come to us. We will have your back. Be brave, do something.
Did you notice what I was talking about with the right versus left paradigm taking place there? The puppet show? And how they're talking about why aren't they taking down all of Veritas videos? They're probably going to take down this one, right? Well, there's a lot of voices like that are getting tons of hits, which is always a red flag to me. And though they're telling you a lot of the truth, in fact, a lot of them are telling 99% of it, which I can use, which is why I use it, because the Bible even says that us serious preachers that preach the fire and brimstone are going to stand on the truth movement, the sea of glass, as a podium, as a platform, so to speak. See my video, Robots for the Beast, if you want to see details on that one. And don't get me wrong, I'm not putting any of these voices down. A lot of them are really serious. Their intentions are really well-founded in that they're trying to find the truth of things. They just haven't found the spiritual, the biblical, the church history stuff that they need to really know first. But nonetheless, as I've said many times over the years, I'm grateful for all the work they're doing because it helps me to focus more on the biblical solution because they're doing the work on looking up what's really happening. Although, again, the net's censorship does have the whole world basically steered away from some of the more serious things like the 5G and other issues that we should be looking at as well. So what we're having here is a puppet show. It's still a puppet show. How many of us Christians, believers, are still thinking that if we vote the right people in, we can stop this? That this election is somehow this big turning point if we get the right people in. They're laughing at us, folks, because we're not focused on what's behind the puppet show. Yahweh versus Satan. Which one of those two are we voting for when we're voting for one in the puppet show? Who's pulling the strings on the puppets? Not Yahweh. Satan created the puppet show, folks. Now here's some more stuff I'd like to share with you folks regarding the censorship issues, and I've cut this down considerably. Everywhere you hear a beep, that's where I've taken like 20 minutes out. This was like almost 2 hours long. And this is all containing things regarding the censorship and what James Corbett and his buddy Ricky have found. And I'll just let this one run, and we'll talk more after this one's over.
You've done some amazing work since last time we talked, just us two. And, with the lies, damn lies, that video, I rewatched it recently because it is, how quickly things are changing. It does seem old, because it was a couple months old. And I rewatched it to see how much has changed, like information-wise, or my perspective or on any of the things that you discussed on that video. And literally, you could watch it today, and it's all relevant. Like, it's all, like, nobody ever debunked anything. Like, it wasn't like, things that we thought they were BSing about. There was some type of logical explanation that came afterwards. It's like you could watch it now, and it's like, wow, like, it's not... outdated. It still makes perfect sense. All the things they lied about, nothing has proven otherwise. But yet people are talking about the second wave, and people are actually like feeding into it again. I'm like, wait. Like, you were lied to the first time. Why are you even concerned about a second wave? Like, this whole thing is just, it boggles my mind.
Yeah, that's it. That's a really good point. I mean, this is an unfolding story that is happening, in real time. So that slice of what I was doing there, whatever it was, 2 months ago or whatever, was a slice of what we knew at the time and what we didn't know, and how can we quantify that and all of that. That was just looking at that. But it is a developing story, so it's very possible that in reality something else was going on, and that was wrong. And that wouldn't make it valueless. It would just mean that was a slice of what we knew at that particular time. But I think you're right. Yeah, no, that does actually still stand up to this point, that there was demonstrable statistical trickery going on to try to gin up a scare that didn't really exist in reality. And none of that really has been debunked. And yet here we are, as you say, going into the second wave crisis under the exact same types of tricks. And unfortunately, it did work with enough of the population that I think the political calculus has been made that they can continue to ratchet this up. And certainly in the American context with the selection circus and all of that, it's going to come to that. And so we started to see Trump's holding a rally. That's going to be a super spreader event. But 500,000 people or whatever turn up for a George Floyd funeral. That's totally fine. But don't go to your grandma's funeral, because that'll kill people. I mean, it's just total insanity. Absolute total insanity has been introduced, especially in the last few months. And I think they really are testing the limits of people's cognitive processes and how far they're willing to bend reality to fit in line with what Big Brother is telling them to believe.
Yeah, the whole thing just boggles my... Like, everything becomes a political tool, and people don't realize that they're constantly being used and getting worked up on a topic or subject or issue that even the people who are selling you on it don't really care for, or don't really believe the nonsense they're giving you. I mean, one thing that boggled my mind was I was pretty outspoken with the articles I was sharing. I mean, I would share your stuff and plenty of other people's stuff that I'm a fan of that were making really good points. And of course, every time I shared something on social media, I would get a immediate comment like, "Save lives, stay at home. What's the big deal? Just stay," all this stuff. And I try to have logical conversations with a lot of people. And to be honest, there were a lot of people that, if you had a discussion about this facts and the information, they seem to come around a little bit, or at least they seem like they could see it from your perspective. I mean, I think a lot of it is because all their information and their perspectives were built on lies and I mean, numbers that didn't make sense, tests that gave false positives, case after case after case of misreporting how many deaths in these hospitals, the influx of patients that these hospitals are supposed to get that never came. I mean, it was just like it's like. But some people would still be like, well, just stay at home. Just stay home. And if you can save one life, then it's worth it. Well, guess what? If you never drive a car ever again in your life, you might save many lives. If you go protest for another prohibition, I'm like, you could save some lives too, because alcohol is connected to many tragic things. But you're not doing that, because we understand to be free humans, to be free creatures, and to be able to enjoy life to its fullest, it comes at a risk. And it's like, it was amazing how many people would just like all of a sudden put this thing on a pedestal and just completely disregarded all the other things. And like you said, everything became a political tool. You see it now with the protests. It's like completely not okay to protest the lockdown, but completely okay to protest anything else that might be associated with the left. And it's like, I don't care what you're protesting. If you're doing it peacefully, you're not harming people,
You're not harming people. But you are harming people if you're spreading the deadly coronavirus, right? So there you go. There, you've just given the out for all the people who will say, yeah, but you are harming people when you step outside your home. It's such an insidious and such an incredibly effective trick that has been inserted to change the conversation in a way, isn't it? And this goes back to a point that I've been trying to articulate, and I don't think I found the right way to say it, but we are entering a new paradigm, the paradigm of biosecurity. And I've talked about this in regards to a Giorgio Agamben essay that I think is extremely important in highlighting this new paradigm and what it really means. But essentially, it is taking that fundamental idea that, yeah, you can do anything you want as long as you're peaceful and as long as you're not harming anyone. And they're going to put the act of you physically being in a space with other people as a harmful act. And once you do that, you can outlaw all sorts of things that we once thought were, aren't these our God-given rights to go and peacefully assemble? No, not during a pandemic. And what is a pandemic anyway? Well, whatever the unelected health authorities declare it to be. If they say there's a pandemic virus spreading, then how dare you question that, and how dare you step outside your door to peacefully assemble while that's happening? Unless, you're peacefully assembling about this particular cause, in which case that's okay. Again, none of it makes sense. None of it is logical, but it is a test of compliance. And actually, I think of this event as the defining event of the 21st century information war, because it has been observed before that 9/11 was really the last sort of like major event, the major consciousness shaping event that took place in the pre-internet era. Of course, it wasn't pre-internet. Obviously, the World Wide Web existed, but streaming video and all that sort of stuff was still years in the future. There was no social media as we know it today. There were some blogs and I guess CNN.com or what have you. I remember on the day of 9/11 being at work, so I couldn't actually watch the news coverage. I was listening to a radio and I was trying to find out more information. So going to CNN.com, but their servers were down because too many people were going. So this was really kind of a pre-internet event, 9/11. And it has been remarked many times that imagine if that sort of thing happened today and there would be 10,000 100,000 cell phone cameras on it, all live streaming, live tweeting, and Facebook streams and whatever. It would be all over the place instantaneously from every conceivable angle. It would be a different event. And I think for that very reason, that's why we don't have that kind of spectacular terror event in this day and age at this point. So what do they do to try to regain that? I want to say information monopoly. It wasn't exactly, it was more like an oligopoly, but that was the state. Turn of the 21st century, it was an information oligopoly. As we all know, 5 or 6 corporations controlled 90+% of what you saw, read, and heard every single day of your life back in that era. And then the internet and the flowering of new voices and everyone could have a say and all of this. So the last decade specifically has been an attempt to really bring that back under control and bring it back down to some sort of information oligopoly. One important factor in that has been the creation of these social media platforms that everyone goes to, and just the homogenization of everything, which is an important part. I watched an interesting video recently, something about, like, I can't remember the title, something like 2007, the best year of the internet or something. And it was making the point that, back in 2007 when I was a kid, because this is some younger gentleman making this video, and he said back at that time the internet was it felt so free, and you could go to this forum and you go to that forum and you could talk about these different things, and everything had its own unique feel and looked a different way, and you set it up differently and you had your own avatar and blah blah blah. But then you go to the social media era of today, and everything is just so homogenized, and you get your page on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, but it looks like everybody else's, and it's presented in the same way. And now increasingly, of course, as we all know, they are determining what is allowed on that and what is not, and they will retroactively yank material that they suddenly decide is against whatever arbitrary rules they're setting today, and blah, blah, blah. It is not yours. You are giving this information over to this controlled platform and then basically begging, but please let me have my say here in this public square. So that is one important aspect of the way this information is being contained. And then the other important aspect, and one that's becoming more important, is one that I just addressed on my podcast last week about who will fact check the fact checkers. All these fact check sites that are coming along as, it's sort of like the quasi-independent looking or feeling kind of way to propagate establishment narratives against the actual independent media. And I went through a bunch of examples how that works. I'm just, as we're recording this, I'm just recording a different video that'll hopefully be out very shortly about this and how the fact checkers work. But that's another way that they're trying to do this. But imagine that. So this COVID crisis is really crystallizing that. There are the people who will only listen to the fact check sites or only get their information from YouTube that's been pre-screened by the WHO or whatever, as YouTube eventually just becomes essentially another TV network. I mean, that's all it's becoming at this point. There's the people who get their information that way, but there are still independent voices like yours and like mine and like many people that we talk to on a regular basis that are still out there that you can find if you really try. And that space for that independent thought is really the bugbear of this biosecurity paradigm. They can't allow that sort of actual debate to happen because we will demonstrate how they've been lying, and they've been lying since the beginning, and here's how we can document it this way and this way and this way, and look at this and look at Bill Gates and look at all the things he's associated with. We still have that space to do that. And I think they're really trying to completely squelch that out, because once they get rid of that, then almost everyone will eventually give in, because it really is a question of what you were hearing and what you were seeing. And this particular crisis is the perfect example of that. If you are listening to the media on a daily basis and they are reporting, today there's so many millions of cases and so many hundreds of thousands of deaths, and they're reporting it every single day, and every story becomes about this crisis that's happening. And look at this, 37 new people tested positive today, and there's another person who died with COVID-19 today, of the COVID-19, well, whatever. There's people dying left and right. When you hear that day after day after day after day, yes, it becomes in your mind the most important thing that's happening, even if it is not. So yes, I know it's been said before, but let's say it again. If they reported every single day on car accidents, every single day, 13 more people died today in car accidents on the roads, 7 more people died today, 42 people died today in a horrific accident, and blah, blah, blah. Every single day, if that was the only thing that they ever talked about, you better believe people would be all up in arms about road safety and what's going on. There's carnage on the streets, and there'd be people arguing you shouldn't be allowed to drive your car during this pandemic of car accidents and whatever. It is all about perception management, and this is the perfect example of that. And I think so. This is a test of compliance of the general population. Will they go along with the narrative? Will they lock down? Will they defy their own common sense in telling people you are guilty of murder if you step outside of your house, unless it's for an approved cause? It's just a compliance test in every way, and unfortunately, I think a lot of people have failed. But as we said, there's so many people who are starting to wake up to this right now.
Yeah, I think the censor thing is probably one of the most important topics out there for that reason. Because honestly, if we can't get the information out there, then what good is the information? But you know what? Right now, the difference between now and then is that now there does seem like it's so obvious that everything that we're seeing online, from your suggestions on Google when you search stuff, to your phone suggestions, to YouTube, whatever, that all of it's being censored. I mean, the fact check stuff on Facebook was ridiculous. I mean, I was sharing stuff, and then like a month after I shared it, it'd be, I'd get a little notification telling me that there was a warning on this, and it was misinformation or disinformation. And which was phenomenal, because it was like, really, like, there's evidence after evidence of mainstream media misguiding people, obviously pushing an agenda.
I wonder if they're going back and retroactively labeling all those WMD stories or whatever.
Exactly.
Right? No, of course not.
Yeah, and that's a huge issue, because it's like, why are you treating, if you're going to put alternative media on a pedestal and say that they have to be held to these standards, then everybody should. And when CBS lies about which footage of a hospital they're showing and gets caught that it's not a New York hospital, if that's misleading, then you know what? They should also get a little warning or whatnot. So it's ridiculous. And I think now more and more you're seeing people just getting fed up with it and wanting a solution and wanting, I think, like, back in the day, people liked YouTube, and even when there was some censorship, you could still, even some years ago, you could kind of still go down some rabbit holes if you did enough looking around. But now it's like impossible to find anything that's not just mainstream. And even the pandemic documentary, I mean, when you see how orchestrated that fight against that documentary was, when literally in like 24 hours, it went from being shared everywhere and being uploaded everywhere to disappearing everywhere. I mean, to think about the power that big tech has to do that, and how ridiculous it is, and that somebody debunking the video could basically show you the whole video. As long as they're calling it a hoax, as long as they're debunking it, you could watch the video. So it wasn't so dangerous that you couldn't watch it. You just couldn't watch it and make up your own mind. You had to watch it with somebody else influencing what you're watching. And that's the part that really just drove me effing crazy. It made me so upset because I'm like, do people not see how insane? I would talk to people about it, and people immediately are like, oh, it's a right-wing anti-vax documentary. And I'm like, what do you, huh? I'm like, I'm like, what exactly do you disagree with? And people would just send me some article of like, oh, it's debunked. I'm like, I'm like, the Wikipedia page got locked and she couldn't even do anything about it. I'm like, this was orchestrated. If anything, you should think about how dangerous it is that all the big tech companies could come together to basically make this disappear because they were worried about people actually asking questions.
Yeah, absolutely. That speaks to the incredible power that exists right now to lock down information. And it's only going to get worse from here. But I remember even years ago hearing about the company that controlled, I guess, managed Joe Rogan and his content and bent pixels or whatever, which is what will flag anytime you upload any sort of Rogan content to YouTube or whatever. It'll automatically get flagged by this company, which I understand with his management company, or he had contracted the rights to, or whatever. But I had heard at the time, and I never really looked into the bottom of it, but it wasn't just like the content ID system that YouTube has, where if you are a content creator, you can add your content to the content ID system so that then it can automatically check new uploads against what you have uploaded as content ID. So it can basically see, oh, this is just a re-upload of your thing here, so it can automatically flag it. That's at least theoretically how the content ID system works. But from what I understand, this bent pixels could actually identify Joe Rogan's voice. Just identify the voice anywhere on any upload that's going on and automatically flag that and bring it to their attention, which, again, I don't know if that is true, but I think it's clearly trending in that direction anyway. Eventually it will be that there will be an algorithm possible that you could deploy that will find James Corbett's voice on any particular platform that you're choosing to look for it and flag that content. And, one doesn't have to go out too far on a limb to say, if and when the order comes down to take James Corbett off the internet, boom, flip that switch, and suddenly on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or wherever my stuff is posted will get taken down all at once. I think that's certainly possible. We'll put it that way. It's just a question of how that sort of thing gets implemented. And that is, say it with me, you knew it was going to come up, that is the memory hole. It is 1984. That is exactly what Orwell was envisioning, that they will be able to completely just airbrush people out of history. Like, Stalin and the Soviets used to airbrush people out of history once they became unpopular with the regime. Well, they can do that digitally now, and that will start to happen. So that's another part of what we need to be doing, is actually physically saving our own copies of any important material and checking against what emerges in the future. Because I guarantee you, at some point in the future, you're going to be looking for videos, and not only will they not be there, but no, the video you think you remember where you thought somebody was saying something, well, suddenly he's not saying that thing. What? I'm sure that it used to say that, but now it's saying this. Wait, what's going on? That is coming. It is literal 1984 that we're stepping into. And that's what scares me, because, again, once they get their information oligopoly back in place and all the independent voices are squelched out, who will even be here to document that kind of thing when it happens? And eventually, at some point, once they've gaslit you enough, you might start to believe it. Maybe I am going crazy. Maybe Bill Gates never did say that. I don't know. I can't find the video anymore. Oh well. I guess I'll just start believing this.
Yeah, I mean, our memories are sometimes, you can be in the exact same place with a group of people and everybody can kind of remember some events slightly different. So if they did have the power to, and that technology exists, it just isn't very good right now. Or it's good enough probably to trick some people.
The publicly available version isn't that great.
That's true. Good point. Yeah. And so you think about it, it wouldn't be that hard to trick people that something wasn't said, because we already question our memory all the time anyways. Like, oh, am I remembering that incorrectly or whatnot? I mean, some of this is just insane. So in Ludlow, where I live in Massachusetts, so Massachusetts had this change.org petition going around because they're proposing kids wear masks when they have to go back to school. And of course I signed it and shared it and whatnot. All of a sudden, I mean, thousands and thousands of people signed it, and it was going around really quickly, and all of a sudden the petition was just taken off. It just disappeared. I mean, there's just, big tech has so much control over everything that, and it is a little scary. I mean, you look at like the Plandemic documentary. I think it was plandemicmovie.com was the only place you could find it right from their website. Well, guess what? That website disappeared. So even a domain name that I'm sure Mickey, the filmmaker, bought and paid and owned, somehow they made that disappear. So it's just like, nothing is off limits and nothing is sacred and nothing is impossible. I mean, they will just do whatever it takes to control the narrative and control what people see and control what people think. I mean, another thing that's a little scary. So I saw somebody share that everybody already has the COVID-19 tracking app already downloaded on their phone. And I'm like, really? And I'm like, even Android? So I go on my phone, and of course, I find it. I actually screenshot it, and then I think I posted it on social media. I told people, I'm like, you might want to check if this thing's on. Even if you don't even know you had this app, you have it now. And so it's insane. It's insane that like they're just, your phone's downloading apps that you didn't ask for, turning on. I mean, obviously it's listening to you. And that's why I think we need, the fight against censorship and getting people this alternative media, to me, almost seems like the biggest topic ever, because it's the only way people are going to be aware of what's going on. And if it means that we have to come up with some crappy website that gives you some videos to get you down some rabbit holes and some websites, because this is the thing, is like, James, I'm aware of your website, obviously. I mean, I go on there often, but there's many people, if it's not on YouTube, if it's not on Google, if it's not suggested somewhere, one of these sites that everybody uses, then they're never gonna, I mean, obviously they're not gonna find you on Facebook or Twitter now, but
no,
but
I am still on YouTube.
Yeah, you are on YouTube,
and I am there specifically because it is the one place where I know that I can reach people who would not hear my voice otherwise. The Bill Gates documentary has combined over 1 million views, different uploads, different places. I mean, over 1 million people have seen that because it is on YouTube. If it was just on my website, it would be in the thousands. So I understand, and that is the problem. So I'm going to continue to use their enemy information weapons platform as long as they continue to offer it to me, as long as I can continue to actually get real information out. And I'm not trying to censor or calculate. I got an email from someone recently. How do you do it? How do you maintain? How do you stay up on YouTube or whatever? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just doing what I do, and I'm putting it out there. And if they choose to censor it, well, they're going to choose to censor it. But the one that I'm surprised at, actually, so far, Bill Gates' plan to vaccinate the world, I was absolutely convinced that one was going to be censored, blocked, or algorithmically messed with in some way, specifically because that, of all of the work, that one specifically seems most against the new arbitrary, the YouTube will only allow things that go in line with what the WHO is saying kind of thing. But it's still there. So I don't know. And, are they allowing certain uploaders to upload certain things, but because they have enough of a following that they might kick up a stink, but quietly getting rid of everyone else? I'm aware that I'm in a privileged position at this point, having built up an audience over the past 13 years, that I can put out work that will be seen by people and will be heard. Even if they do scrub me from YouTube, there will still be tens of thousands of people who know of my work and are interested in following it and will follow me to other platforms. I know that if I was James Corbett of 2007 starting out in 2020, I wouldn't know how to do it at this point. I wouldn't know how to build up this kind of audience, and I don't know if I'd ever be able to. The game has shifted so completely. So it is a genuine problem. And hey, let's make it even worse. This isn't just a problem of these platforms and how to distribute information on them. Eventually, it is the hardware itself that is going to be the problem. Because for example, hey, all of a sudden I got this COVID tracker on my phone. I guess there must have been a firmware update that I didn't know about. Yeah, exactly. They can push things out to you without you even knowing about it until after the fact, because we're in the midst of a pandemic, folks. You got to do what you got to do. So that can happen. But even more fundamentally than that, the devices that we use are getting more and more dumbed down. And I mean that in the sense that, to put it in Marxist terms, my means of production is sitting right here on this desk. I am using it right now. My means of production is this computer. That's how I produce the content I produce, and this is what I need. That and an internet connection is how I do what I do. And it does what it does, and I can edit video, and I can record things, and I can upload things, and do all of that. But more and more, we are being pushed onto the phones or the fondle slabs or the pads or these kind of dumbed down devices that are essentially glorified vending machines. These are no longer means of production. They are means of consumption. You use these little devices to consume content, not so much to create it. Yeah, you can make a video on your phone, I guess, but it's not going to be a fully produced, edited production like you can do on your desktop. And we are being moved more and more off of actual physical machines that sit on your desk and that you can do things with, into these little fondle slabs that are glorified vending machines.
Yeah, that's why we have to keep doing our work and attempting to find locations to post it. I mean, I've been really just active in trying to get people together to try to figure out a way to get this information out there, because people like yourself, I mean, your documentaries, I'm sure of it, and I'm sure by getting emails and stuff, have changed people's lives and changed people's perspectives on the world. And we need to constantly find a way to fight back, because our other option is to not fight back. And then if you do that, you failed, you've lost, you've given up, and you might as well just let them have their way. And so I think regardless how big of a difference we can make, we have to attempt it. We have to continue fighting back. So
yeah. No, that's it. And that's exactly what it comes back down to for me. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to win this thing. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I do know if we just curl up in a ball and do nothing, we're going to lose. So what are you going to do? You got to do something with your life. Might as well make it count.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you really want to help us change the atmosphere in big tech in the way they're treating us? Then simply walk away from them. They love the fact that they can trace and track everything we do. A lot of us are getting back to hard copy distribution. DVDs, tracts, flyers. They can't track that stuff. It'll frustrate them. It'll cause confusion at their end rather than ours. We will be the ones getting information. They will be the ones playing catch-up. Doesn't that sound like it would be more fun to work that way? Where we are the ones calling the shots? We are the ones with the power and the might? But folks, we're only going to be able to do that if we call upon the might of the Father in heaven, having ourselves first researched the deeper lies that yes, there is a God, that Bible's for real. And He calls us to make a choice. He gives us a free will. He doesn't censor things that are good. He censors things that are evil. You see, Satan wants to censor things that are good. So he was slowly morphing us into a neutral ground that doesn't exist between the Father and himself, so that he could pretend that that neutral ground is really neutral. There's no such thing. Neutral ground is Satanism in disguise. You can either serve the laws of goodness, righteousness, and love, come of the God of the Bible, or you can serve selfishness, humanism, materialism, those things which are all different forms of Satan worship, worshiping the creature rather than the Creator. Let's censor the evil. Let's turn the tables on them. Let's get back to basics and talk over backyard fences without our cell phones in our pockets so they could listen in. Let's pass out flyers, tracts, DVDs, jump drives, whatever it takes that they can't trace and track. Throw away your store cards that give you bonuses. That'll speak to the stores as well. They'll come back. Quit doing the digital coupon stuff at some stores. And that's just the store parts. You can start with those little bitty peepee steps. Don't let them track you. Don't let them trace you. Show them you don't want this world that they are trying to force us into. Show the death gods that we don't want their death god world. We want a world of love, happiness, joy, peace, brotherly harmony. We don't want these race riots that they keep inspiring us to get into. They're tracking us. They're tracing us. They've got us fighting each other, divide and conquer. Well, let's let them divide themselves and conquer. You know, the super rich families way up top, they're fighting each other too. Let them fight things out while we sit back and watch them destroy themselves. We can't do that until we get back to Scripture, reform our lives, get the Father's help, His discernment, and we get back to the basics of the way we were created to love one another. The summary I'd like to give you folks to chew on as we leave today is that I want to ask you a question. Why should we focus with such paranoia over the petty details of the overall problem if we don't first even know the general direction of where the true escape door is? Folks, please think on this part if nothing else. Study where your escape door is. There's only one. They've hidden the escape door first so that we'd run around the room trying to figure out which door is the right one. They've got the real escape door painted over and camouflaged. It's the Bible. It's the God of that Bible. Yes, we need to study the truth. We need to know the truth. We need to share it with one another so that we know how to explain what's going on with one another. But we can't dwell on the problem. We need to study the solution, the escape door, and make sure we are headed for it. Make sure that door will be open to us as we get to it. If we're all facing the escape door, the Savior, and His law system, He will come and help us. So there's a lot of people out there that don't understand the truth about that Bible, about that God. They don't think that things have gotten serious enough yet now. Okay, well then now you have to show them more of the facts, more of the problem. So yes, you do what I have done for years. You show them the truth about 9/11, the truth about the Federal Reserve, the truth about the chemtrails, the truth about the GMOs, the truth that cancer is curable in many cases. And when they get upset that they've been lied to, and they start trusting that your discernment's better than theirs, and that maybe they should start listening to you a little bit, then please turn their focus to the solution, the escape door. The door is Yeshua. He is the gate. He that entereth not in by the gate, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. All the other escape doors are phonies. Satan has set them all up. All the politics, all the false man-made law systems are all false escape doors. Folks, we've got to get back to the Bible as a law book, as a governing law book for our society. We need to not only accept it, but embrace it. Get on our knees, repent of having not seen this sooner, and ask the Father to come help us with this situation. That is the escape route. I thank you for spending time with me again today. And I know this was a long one. I apologize. But this one was hard to edit down any shorter. I love you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Hallelujah.